Dear God in heaven, it's joyful Christian Hermit. I'm home. I escaped yesterday morning from this rehab place, if you can call it that. Quite a thing, but I got onto it. Really, God helped me. And a wonderful nurse named Jeffrin, who is originally from Africa, but was born in Dijon, France. And he came here either a year or 5 years ago. He's a registered nurse. He was very, very good. And he helped me. But he was going to be gone the next 4 days. But so Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night was his last night there. But I had been restricted from walking with the walker on my own. I still have my I'm not going to take that off. That was a nasty big pick line up into my shoulder. I'll wait on that to take that thing off. The pick line's out, but my thing on it. Don't want to have it bleed or anything. But so, the bed was bad for me. They got me a nicer mattress, but it just went down like within hours, and just the worst spine pain. My pain was getting worse and worse. My gut was getting worse and worse from the pain radiating through. I just can't explain arachnoiditis enough to people. They don't know. The doctor there, he only comes like once a week, and it's a different one, just floats around. And he had never heard of it. He was an affable man and nice and all, but he had never heard of this. And the place, this one man, he tried to get this new not a new mattress, but a thin one over the metal mesh, and I thought it was going to work, but no, it just flattened in it. On Thursday, I woke up and my neck, I couldn't turn my head. It was excruciating, so I just held it all day. Well, the PT comes in. My second physical therapy I had there. The first one was 10 minutes at most. And I was doing pretty well then, I didn't have to hold my head. But the next day, my neck was so bad. But I said, no, we got to do something. Keep going. I wasn't up at all. She wouldn't release me to walk with the walker. Finally, I was just doing it in the room because these kids wouldn't come. I wasn't supposed to get out of bed without someone there and blah, blah. And, I had to get to the bathroom and whatever. You have to do what you got to do. So I was up and around, but I didn't go outside of the room. But finally, I realized Thursday, the physical therapy was another nothing burger, just 10 minutes of zero. These were the things she had me do. So she had me put one foot in front of the other and wait 10 seconds. Other foot in front of 10 seconds. Do it again, twice, so I had 40 seconds doing that. Then she gave me a big yellow ball the size of a basketball, but just rubber. See if you can bounce this. Well, I'm from a state that's big basketball. I played basketball growing up. Bounce, 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 bounce. And, oh, wow, you do that so well. Oh, good grief. And, big deal. So then she had this little square thing that was 3 inches high. Tap my foot on it 10 times. Tap the other foot on it 10 times. It's 3 inches off the ground, a little square. And, and they had interviewed me, and she, what do you like to do? Do you like to play cards or do puzzles or watch TV? No. Well, what do you do? I said, well, I'm renovating my house. I've been doing gardening. I messed up my back by digging we did find the sprinkler break. It was from the grinder, but it's okay. I don't blame Corey. He was getting all the roots out, and he must have jagged cut that. And by a miracle of God is always helping us. I had gone out there Sunday night at 9, just checking things, and water was gurgling out of the ground. I wish it had been oil, but it was water gurgling up. And he hadn't been there for for 3 days or 2 days. He'd come back on that Friday, and this was Sunday night. Corey, the wonderful guy who got those roots out and stuff in my stumps. But it must have hit the pipe, and it just must have come loose just then. Maybe the earth slightly shifted or something, but the water came where it hadn't leaked before. Thank God it did that night, because I wouldn't have seen it. That it was just gurgling out of, like a huge gusher. The whole ground within a minute or two was just up to the surface. So I turned off the water in front, came back, dug for an hour in mud, and that's what did in my lumbar. When I woke up in the morning, I was okay at first, and then by 10, my gut went. I had a gut attack. So, and then I had to call EMS. It was sometime before 11 in the morning. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I could check. I don't know how to check my phone for the time, because then it keeps calling 911 and I don't need them. But so, yeah. But I got the water turned off, but then it was this big race to find somebody to come, and there are some things that are lost. Looks like Weeping Wonder has bit the dust. Of course, I was too proud about it, because it had been I bought it half dead, got real good cheap deal on it. Resurrected it, God did, but I helped. I was his little instrument, and I was pointing it out, I think probably in video, but to Corey and different people, about it was just thriving. And it's, oh, poor little thing. I might try to get out there with my walker and prune it way down and see if I can just get it to come back if the roots aren't totally gone. Put some holy water on it, pray over it. Weeping Wonder. So it's a very rare weeping type. It had the most unusual leaves, some ginkgo, and then these long strings of a ginkgo. It's a rare ginkgo. It's a gorgeous specimen thing. So, and I got it, I think, for $25. It had been $150. They'd marked it down to $100. It just looked so forlorn. And I got it at the end of the season. I think I just offered him something. And, oh, sure, because it looked like it was never going to make it anyway. And that thing, but things happen. We'll see if it can come back. But anyway, the sprinklers are fixed. There's a little leak out there, but this guy named Sean, a different Sean, SHAWN, SHAUN, this older guy who also has pain, but he's going to come and fix it out there by the turn on. But it's on. It wasn't leaking that badly that I can't pay the water bill for it. So he'll come hopefully next week. But yeah, but that place, so I think should probably talk. I've got to keep this short because somehow they're not loading up. But I knew I started observing and picked up on things at this rehab place that they keep people there and use your insurance. So I have more physical therapy here. They had no machines. I have a recumbent stationary bike in here, feet away from me. I need to get up and use it. I'm taking it slow and easy because I overdid it yesterday when I got home, because my puke bags were still in the half bath and EMS stuff was still in there. Good news, they left the band that they tied, because they had to do an IV on me on the pot. I was in too much pain to be moved. So they had to put something in me and walk me quickly to the gurney and get me down. And that's about all I remember. But I have this wonderful stretchy band that will be ideal for tying a tree to a stake. A bigger trunk, that it will just be wonderful. I was so thrilled to find that they'd left it. The big rubber thing that they used to get a vein to pop out for you, so they put a needle in. So that was nice, wasn't it? I'm being very positive. Very grateful to be home. But no, that was the food. I don't think anyone could even try to make something that bad and unhealthy. They had some meat and some stuff. I picked the meat out. Look at me. I've never been this thin. I was this thin the first year of going through my divorce battling, in pain, had baby that was a year old, year and a half, diapers, um, back in the classroom, doing all this, and in shock from going through a divorce and my neck, everything injured, and so I just lost weight, doing everything. Um, so I got down to, I think, 120 then, so I'm at 120, which I'm tall, so I've lost weight, and that place I would never gain because it was bad. Uh, I don't know. It gets worse. What I tell you. Um, there was a wonderful night nurse from Dijon, France, but from Africa originally, but probably born in Dijon, France. I think he said he was. And he'd be there at night. So I wasn't able to go out on my own. Finally, and no one would come. I'd just go ahead and get myself up because, you gotta go. You gotta go. And then I realized I'm not getting any walking in. My back got so bad from the mattress that went kaput, and my neck. So I was in agony, and I know I need to walk to loosen my spine. And it was just getting worse, my spine, by the hour, to the point it was unbearable. My thoracic spine went horrible. And the neck got better by Thursday afternoon. It got a little better. This one nice guy had got me a neck brace to wear, and that helped some, but not a lot. Sort of put it in an awkward. And you have to, if I determined it was muscular. First I thought, oh dear, I'm going to need a scan. But then I realized, no, it's muscular from the pillows and the bed. And so you don't want to keep a brace on. You got to get it loosened, even though it hurts. You can't let it go into lock mode. So, but it's still so painful. But you got to deal with it. Keep going. You got to keep going. Got through as long as you can, but it was nearly so. The nurse then, or this PT then, in addition, she had me do 10 little in-air squats. So that's 10 seconds. And I had told them, they said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I do gardening. I'm renovating my house. I'm up and down ladders and on scaffolding. And I just push myself, even though I'm in horrible pain. And then I come in at night and collapse. And I have 2 dogs that I have to take out, even when I'm sick. I have to force myself unless it's too bad, and then one of the neighbors will come and take them out. And but I said that's rare because I just make myself, even though I might be in bed and not even eating, not getting up to eat, but I will get them out 5 or 6 times a day on their leashes, and they know to go fast when I'm in bad shape. So, they're smart dogs. They understand. It's hard on them, but so I said I do that. I'm very active because I can't sit. I can't stand in one place. And when the pain is bad, but not too bad, I just have to keep moving my body. I have to keep up and going, and so they didn't make me eat with the group because I said I always either eat laying down, just like I am now, with my knees are up, or I'm up in the kitchen grange eating or outside walking with it, just taking a bite and then moving and walking, doing something, and then eating and grange eat, like different things throughout the day. Healthy, too. And I thought, they're write-ups. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get spoiled here. I don't know how anyone could make anything. And I know they had even packaged pudding. It was inedible. Well, how can you get something so bad? Except must have been really cheap. Maybe bought old stuff, leftovers, or, boxed and canned, and white toast, I haven't been eating wheat because I have drainage sinus. I haven't been eating wheat for a long time. So, I did. And even they sent something, you'd think it was like mashed potatoes with cheese or something. No, it's just bread with some kind of maybe a gravy or not even that, water in it, baked or held together. It was just horrific. The one thing they had, I was so surprised and pleased, was some shredded cauliflower with a little bit of cheese in it. Oh, thank heavens, cooked. That was wonderful to have just something that wasn't mutilated and it had health to it. Cauliflower is good for you. And they tried. I got oatmeal. The final morning, I finally found one of the CNAs, a kid, who had character, and she brought me snacks: string cheese, a protein drink, 2 apple sauces, and another ginger ale, because I needed it for the night before I was going to escape. I'd already figured out I had to get out of there. And I'd mentioned to my grandson, what the plan was going to be, and I wanted him to go get me some clothes, or bring his mom a pair of jogging shorts and a shirt so I could get out of there. All I had was that gown, and it didn't tie in back. That was from the hospital. They gave me nothing else there. But it was just, so and I had my diaper on, of course. But so finally, the last night, I thought, nuts to this. That's what my mom used to say, nuts to this. She'd get fed up. I said it calmly, but nuts to this. I got up, went out of the room with the walker, and I just started walking and walking. Finally, I found this good night nurse. He was there. And I said, I don't have permission to be out here walking. But I said, I've got to walk. I said, my back cannot take it. I have to walk. And I had already walked 8 to 10 times the full length of that building and back. Whereas the PT, the most she would let me, with her, with a strap around me, like I was going to flop like a dead fish on the ground, with some belt around me. And she didn't want me to hold my neck. And I said, well, this arm's free. I said, what's the problem with my holding my neck? I said, I don't dare let go of my neck. I don't know yet if it's a disc that something's happened to, or a vertebrae, or if it's muscle. And I said, it's in too much agony. I cannot jiggle it. Because I said, I can't have more pain pills. I don't want to, than my regular. I don't want more. Because, you just make your gut more constipated. So, and if you're not walking and not allowed to walk, good grief. So I held my head like this and walked just fine. But only just a third down that hall. Well, it wasn't even third. The whole thing was a third of what I was doing. 8 to 10 times, but we just did it once. And then, get back in bed, and you can't. And I said, can you release me so I can walk out there with the walker? Oh, no, I can't yet. Maybe tomorrow. That would have been 4th of July. Well, she wasn't even coming on the 4th. Thank God. But no, that's not physical therapy. They had no equipment, no bands, no stretching. I've got all kinds of stuff. Kettlebell, little barbells. I've got things you put up at the door, and pulleys, and this, and my recumbent stationary bike is just 5 feet from me. Gotta use it though. So I talked to this nurse, and I saw that good girl there. The other aides who kept telling me for 2 days that they were busy doing paperwork or busy with patients or had to do records or something. I found them at this big station out in the middle, like in the opening area of this big facility. It was a nice facility, very nice. But they were out there on their phones and yucking it up with each other and on computers, Googling stuff. So I didn't, at first I saw them all sitting out there. And I said, oh, you're doing your paperwork. Good for you. I'm trying to encourage. And then when I get closer, no, and they made some comments. They sort of sniggered. And no, they were just goofing around. They hadn't been doing anything. And I mentioned this to the nurse. I said, I am so sorry. I said, I caught those kids out there. Well, they were in their early 20s. But I said, there's young adults and there's kids. And these are kids with no character. And I said, that's why you're working so hard, doing everything. He was the only nurse for 30 people that night. Well, any night. But there was this good girl there who was by him, but she's the one that immediately got me stuff. And yeah. So I told her, I said, don't hang out with those kids. They're bad news. I said, you are a young adult. You're gorgeous. You've got character and nobility. You're doing your job, and stay with Nurse Jeffrin here, because he's a worker, and he's got character, and he's ignoring and doing what they're to do plus his job, because he needs his work. He needs his job to get paid. He needs pay. And so I said, stay with people always in your life who are going to lead you forward in good ways. These others will drag you down, and they'll mock you or put you down and put pressure on you to be like them. They'll make fun of you if you don't. So I said, just stay clear. She says, I am. I'm not having anything to do with them. And I said, good. I said, that's why you're here, aren't you? And by Jeffrin, she said, yes, I'm helping him. So anyway, good for her. But so Jeffrin said, yes. He said, go ahead and walk. He says, I'm giving you my permission. He says, you're doing great. And he says, just keep going. Then I said, I'm starting to pick up on things here. I said, there was a man in the room next to me when I was out walking. I noticed, I said, most of these people aren't in my level, even though I nearly died and am beat up and have all this pain. But I said, I have to keep going or my pain will paralyze me. And I think my guts are being paralyzed. I think they're already, that's the problem. I think I need to get them out, get a colostomy. Can't go through that again. But I said, these people they're just like heads down or just right up close to TV and like comatose practically, but able-bodied, but in that atmosphere, no one's making them do anything. And they're not able to. If they get PT, look at what I was being given after I told them how active I need to be and had been and have to get back on my feet. And I told this one man the first day that I was going to be out of there in a day or two. Because I was starting to read. I said, once I get this medicine out of my gut that I did read about, and it was a poisoning. I'm allergic to it officially. I read that it says if you get all these symptoms, you're allergic to it. And sure enough, so it's off my charts, but I'm going to add it as an allergic. So I never want it again. I'm still dealing with it. I don't know if it's done permanent damage or not, because I'm still dealing with it terribly. But it's better, but bad still. Very hindering, agony, and icky. So, but he said, he opened his eyes at one point and said something, and I just read through it that he knew what's going on there. And he says, I just keep doing my job. But he said, you keep going. Keep working. Well, one of my last trips, I said, I'm going to be leaving tomorrow. I knew I had to get out of there. Oh, I met this guy next to me. I had seen him in my walks, and he looked to be 79 or 80, and he looked really great. Good shape, and his legs were up. He's on his phone, just looked like he was at home, enjoying TV or whatever. And so he was out walking later, and I went, doing great, just fine. And I said, well, how long have you been here? He says, like 6 or 7 weeks. And I said, you're just doing so well. I said, when do you get to go home? He says, well, I'm hoping a week or two. I'm hoping. And then it hit me, that they do this. They limit and they keep you there and just use your insurance. And then they had ordered like 3 each of my eye drops for my glaucoma. And I used like 1 bottle in 2 months. And I realized they're expecting me to be here a long, long time. And that first day when I told that man I was going to be, better and be able to get home in a day or two, that I do better on my own, that I've been through major surgeries and have been on my own because it forces me. And in those cases, I just had to. My daughter was working, well, not as much then, but some, quite a bit. But we were in rough waters then. And she had this bad marriage thing going on. And so after my major spine surgery, I was in here by myself. They had me out of the hospital too soon in like 2.5 days, because I'd had complications, and they didn't realize that I hadn't slept in 2 days either, because I had hallucinations one night from me given the wrong med. And the first night they couldn't keep me breathing, so I was up all night, and they put a big ventilator on me, and that you don't sleep with those on you. So I'd gotten this one night, 2 nights. Yeah, they had me go the third day. My son was upset, but blaming me. Oh, you just want to go home. You just want to act tough, Mom. Stop doing this to yourself. You're always so tough and have to do so much. I said no, and my daughter knew, though, that I had tried. She was there, and this bully came in, this bully bouncer that the surgeon evidently had or something. She wasn't hearing any of it, and I was out of there. But my daughter said, you've got to get her home health. She can't, this is terrible, and she can't function. She's had this major spine surgery, so and lives alone. I didn't have my dogs then, but I couldn't have. But yeah, so we had home health come, but otherwise I've told you about how the church, I had these meals for 2 weeks, and people started bringing me extra because they realized how bad a shape. But the nurse was staunch, wasn't going to be any more than after the 2 weeks. So the parish nurse. So we Christians, we can lose sight, can't we? We can lose sight of ourselves. And if we've not suffered, suffering is such a benefit because we understand others then. And we understand compassion. And we'd rather go overboard than risk someone, being in over their head with suffering. So anyway, yeah, I'd become a scrapper, and I knew. So this Jeffrin, it was going to be his last night there, and I said, oh, how am I going to do it without you, Jeffrin? He came in before he left at 6 a.m, and he says, I need to talk to you, just you and me. And he says, you need to know and remember and keep this in mind. You are very strong. You can do this. You don't need this. Be strong. Do what you've got to do. He had to be very careful. He says, I have to be very careful what I say. And I understood. I got it. I said, I already know. I said, I'm getting out of here in the morning. Today has to be the day, the 4th, because a lot of the major domos won't be there. They'll have string staff, which already was string there. They'll have string, and they'll have the least, maybe even just fill-in people, because the regular people would have taken it off. And it would be easier for me to get out of there without a big hullabaloo. So I said, yep, I'm leaving, and my daughter's aware. I texted my grandson, what I wanted him to do in the morning, and that we were getting out of there. And I said, don't worry, I may have to get firm, but it's okay. It's my rights. They can't keep you. And I said, Porter, I could, I've been through far worse at home alone. So, and I'm up, and I've been walking, and no problem. So, I when I was up today and I wasn't using the walker in the kitchen because I can hold the counter if I need to have a chair out there, I did get woozy from my gut pain, and my back pain is on fire. It's going to take a while to get this healed up, if it can, from all that happened to me. And the bed was getting worse by the hour. So, and they tried with the bed, but so yeah, they were sending people in. When it first came in, I'd gotten up, I'd gotten my stuff together. I took extra Depends. I took whatever they had there. And I even asked for one for the road after I had mine packed away. And I took one of my little pills. My daughter had brought me pills. I had them well hidden in case I needed. She knows. She knows that I'm not an abuser. I know what I'm doing. And she's seen me in horrific pain when it was unjust to have me that way. So I did take a 4 milligram instant release to help me get through what I had to get through. And but my daughter had called me that the night before She caught on quickly. She says, "This is a racket place." I said, "Yes, yes, it is. It's a racket." And I said, "They'll have me so I won't be out of here if in weeks, if not months." And I said, "If my back keeps getting worse, I'll never be out of here." Just like if I'd stayed on that Movantic, I would have been in the hospital forever or probably dead eventually. My gut would have been just so, well, they would have had to operate or do something. But anyway, this is a reality out there. And and the man, even when I said I was going to leave, "Oh, no, no, you've got to stay at least a week or 2 weeks." He says, "You go home." He says, "You'll be just right back in the hospital." Just so negative. And after but I had told him about my daughter being a pickleball pro and co-founder and co-owner of this big place here. And also talked to him, he likes to do wheelchair basketball. He's not paraplegic, he just loves doing it with wheelchair-bound people, helps them and stuff, has friends that needed it, and he got involved and loved darting around on those little fancy motor wheelchair things, barely wheelchairs, and he just started playing pickleball, but he tore his calf muscle. So he's off of it a month, but he loved pickleball. And I said, I think they could use you to start something with pickleball, because pickleball wheelchair's big, wheelchair pickleball. That'd be a great service to this whole area. So, because everybody loves pickleball when they start playing it, they get addicted to it. So, he was all jazzed about that. I said, I haven't had a chance to talk to her about you yet, but it's a good thing I had that. I didn't realize I would need to use it or have it. But, he was befriended, and he also wanted me to be released so I could walk with my walker. But the PT wouldn't release me. Well, anyway, so first person who came in, I had everything ready. And she says, "Well, something or whatever." Oh, it was an occupational therapist came in and said, "Well, we're going to try to get you up today." Like I was comatose or something. But I said, "Oh, I'm leaving today. I'm leaving this morning." Oh, my daughter didn't want me to have my grandson do it. Too much responsibility. And he was freaking out, worrying about me, calling her and on and on. So I got a hold of Sean, my SEAN, the one around the corner. And he could just bring my own truck because it's up high and it's comfy for me. He's got a little teeny economy car, which is great. But I have to have a big up high, and I hardly drive, so I don't use much gas, and I don't emit into the environment much, so whatever. Anyway, it's comfortable. It's good for me. If I drive to drive, it's the best seat I've had, best ride I've had. So, plus they see an old lady in a truck, and they part the ways. They just move out of my way. I can have big parking areas, and they'll pull their cars out to get away from me because they think I'm going to hit them. It's wonderful. It's just great. I always try to make sure they see that I'm old because it's a gift that keeps on giving in different ways. They're scared of an old lady in a pickup truck. So she was stunned, and I said, "Oh, yes, and well, do they know about it?" I said, "No, but I'm all ready, and somebody's come to pick me up later." And well, Sean wasn't even awake yet. I'd texted him, but he hadn't gotten them yet. So his grandma told me she was up there mountain thing, but he'd stayed here. Said call him, but I waited until 10. But he'd just then gotten the text, So, but in the meantime, though, people were coming. "You can't leave. We don't have for one thing, we don't have anyone to do discharge papers." I said, "Oh, just me." I channeled my dad. Hate to use the word because it's sort of new agey, but I thought, think your dad, even try to look like him. And stay calm, firm, pleasant, but unperturbed and unbudgeable. And I knew my rights because I've had to get out of hospitals twice. And I know at the ultimate, you call the police. They will come. And if you're not, in a psych unit ward, you have your right mind and you're able-bodied like I was, and you have your reasons, you can get out. It's your legal right. No one can make you stay. Even if you are in bad shape, you can call yourself an ambulance and transfer to someplace else if you make the arrangements. Or even get home, get to a relative and then get into another facility. But so different people coming in. Oh no, it's just not that easy. We just can't mail it to you, and you can't do this, and you need to be here, and blah blah. I said no. I said my daughter's aware, fine with it. This is good. And I said I've been up walking, even though I was restricted, but the nurse said I could, and I didn't see anything about Jeffrin though, and anything that he was signaling me. He's so good. Absolutely not. You have to protect the good ones. And told me I've been through far worse surgeries and worse situations on my own at home. They know nothing of arachnoiditis. None of them there did. No doctor did. They had one doctor. He only came once. Guess like once a week a different one comes. And, oh my goodness. So they kept sending different people, trying to tell me I couldn't. So finally they sent this top-notch person. They called someone, and she came from wherever, her home or whatever. Do you remember me from your first day? I said, well, vaguely. I couldn't remember her name, but I said, you're sharp, and you're on it. You're very nice. Yes, I remember that. You're with it, adept. And so she says, well, we just want you to stay at least another week. Just at least, I said, listen, my back is so bad now. I said, you're so kind to try the bed. It isn't working. I need to get onto my own bed. I said, no one here knows anything about arachnoiditis. And I told her, I said, the PT is nothing. You have no equipment. I have equipment at home. And I have a specialist, only one of two in the state, specially trained in spine and neck. He's a mile from me in his business. I said, which one? It's the number one in the area. For years, it's been ranked number one. They have 4 locations, and he's co-owner and co-founder. Sharp guy, and is 51 years old. And I said, a mile away, I can get professional treatment for my neck, which is a mess now. And, I said, I need to get up and move around, and I have to have healthy food. I said, I'm sorry, but I don't eat like this. And I don't know what else I said, but anyway, I said, no, there's no doubt, no question. And at one point, then I had to say, I know my rights. And she was being good, but kept on and on, trying to say how I shouldn't leave and blah, blah. And I said, well, I got my dad's face on and his voice. And I said, I want to keep this calm and kind. And I said, and I don't want to have to escalate this. And no, we don't want this escalated. We don't want this escalated. I knew, but I just said, I said, I'm leaving. I've got to leave. And I said, appreciate you're trying, the bed, everything. It's not working. And I said, I need to be home and to get my spine worked out, do what I need, what I know to do to get better, and to fix my healthy food. Well, then she started negotiating anything. We'll get you whatever food you want if you'll stay. We will try another bed. Oh, also, I have not allergy, but high sensitivity to fibers. They tested me for allergies a couple of years ago, but my nose was just draining. My eyes were red. I could hardly see. It's getting worse and worse. They had carpet in the room and upholstered furniture, and that was making me bad. And I said, I can't cope with that. I said, I'm sorry, I sound like a picky, but I have no rugs in my home, and haven't for years, because I get really sick from it. Allergy or sinus stuff. And then it's in my lungs and I'm really sick. So I said, that isn't working. I said, are you willing to take up the rugs in here and get the upholstered furniture out? No, I said, you can't. I said, you can't accommodate me. I said, I'm sorry, it isn't working out. And so, no, negotiating to keep me there when I didn't need to be there. Isn't that something? Offering me anything, anything. I could have gotten them to bring me food from these hot shot restaurants around that I never eat at because I don't go out to eat. But, oh, we'll do all the physical therapy you want. Any time of the day, as much as you want, if you'll just stay. And I said, you don't have anything to do physical therapy with, and your physical therapist doesn't know any physical therapy. I told her exactly what they had me do for 10 minutes, including my little teeny walk. I can bounce a ball and don't need to have somebody, oh, that's so good. Oh, you can bounce the ball 10 times. So, no, they were mentally, oh, but you're not ready. And, oh, you'll fall at home. You'll be right back in the hospital and you'll be back here. And, oh, it was so hard for you to get in here. We're selective and, we just don't they'll take anyone they can get their insurance. And this man next door, that was proof to me. They had had him there 6 weeks and would keep him at least 2 more, maybe more. Poor guy. He was better than me walking because of my gut and my back, but isn't it sad? We cannot let other human beings sin like that if we can help it. And we might not be able to stop them, but we get ourselves away from them. Pray for Jeffrin, this nurse. Pray for him. He needs his job and he's stuck there. He's doing the work though. Noble Jeffrin. Pray that he gets in a better place, like the hospital. They were good there, except for the goofball, the 41-year-old man-child who just goes there and takes his check and worked there 21 years. And CNA, sharp, lazy, and didn't do a stitch of work. Nurse was doing it for him because she needed her job. Just too hard. She said just too much dealing with him. But so I had my eyes opened about nursing care. And next time, if I get a big gut attack, I just have to pray to God to help me endure a couple minutes longer. They told me if I had waited a minute longer, the EMS guys and the hospital, if I'd waited a minute longer, I would have died. So, better than that place that I was in at the end. I'm not going to do any bad review for a while. I'll just wait and see what happens. I know they called this guy, but see, that was good. I'd already had the groundwork. Because he wasn't going to mess up with me. Wasn't going to mess with me because of my daughter. You have to pull out all the stops. Use any influence you can, just subtly, in case you later need it. Name drop. I signed they did, all of a sudden they had my papers when I'd said that I didn't want to have to escalate things and that I knew my rights. Calmly, like my dad, John L. Just John L.M. Just calm, smooth, firm. Not gonna be budged. Know my rights. So then, see, but you don't have any clothes. I said, well, no one washed my clothes, but just keep them. It's fine. Although I wanted my pickleball shirt. I'm praying for my daughter today. She's playing. But I said, that's okay. I said, I've got the hospital gown. Oh, but at any time, I said, I don't care. Been through worse. I said, my neighbor guy's coming with my truck. I've already told him I'll be buck naked except my diaper on and a hospital gown that doesn't close in back. He's seen worse, I'm sure, or he'll cope. I said, no problem. They never gave me anything to wear there. So one nurse at the very end When Sean came in, he's a big guy, 6'2". He can lift 130 pounds. Beard, 31 years old. He walked in there, and all of a sudden this nurse comes, and or maybe a CNA, but she was sweet, but she says, "Oh, I'm gonna get you scrub pants. You know, this man's out there. You can't go home like that." I said, "Oh yeah, I can." "Well, I'm gonna get you scrub pants." I said, "How thoughtful of you." I said, "That's nicer for him, because he's not married and he's very modest, and he's such a good Christian and Catholic. He's a good one." So anyway, I had those on then to spare Sean the indignity, but he was ready. He didn't care. I said, you know, this is a ripoff. This is a racket, and got to spring me loose. I got in that truck and I just kept saying, "Thank God Almighty, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. I'm free at last." He got me a watermelon, a big cantaloupe. I've been, you know, watermelon's really good unless you have IBS issues. My daughter and grandson can't eat it. They get bloated and gassy, but it's great. And it's the red, whatever's in the red, it helps. Oh, I forget the word. I read about it yesterday again. It's really good to help your intestines. So I'm going to do my best to clear out the effects of this Movantic. It may be permanent damage. I don't know. I'm leaving it to God. I would just as soon have them out anyway, because I don't want this to happen again. Because this came on me fast within a minute or two. And it was building up, but the extreme came on. The distending out came on within a minute. And nothing I usually do is helping it. I can't go through this again. I don't want to at all. So this is really, out of all my surgeries and everything, this has been the worst. For a while, I thought the one in 1987 when I died, and I'd had, 17 hours of surgery in a matter of 21 hours or something, or 20 hours or less. And that was rugged. That was the one I died in, and I was just butchered by the end, because he had to take everything out, redo it, because the rods were distended, bent too much, slightly. Fluke thing. And a cardiac arrest that no one would have ever lived through. The EMS guys who took me home, because I was in a hospital bed for 3.5 months at home, and the nurse that came said no one would ever have lived through that. She said, "This is a miracle, this is a miracle." And even the nurse that had signed out but came back, she got her in time before she left to come back to help her with me, because I was, kept not breathing and dying. When she did check, she came, her next day was day off. She drove back to the hospital and she looked on the dead list, just sure I had died, and couldn't believe it. But she took her day off, drove back just to see, because she thought, I wonder what happened to that lady that she was helping. But Lovita Goodlad came in three days after I was in my room. I still couldn't talk much, but she did ask me, "Do you believe in God?" And I said, "Yes." And she says, "Well, I do." Or maybe I nodded even, but because I couldn't converse with her. But she said, "This was a miracle, and I want to tell you everything that happened from my end." And so it all jived with what I knew of or could see, even coming back into the hospital and into the recovery room, which was near the surgery room, right outside the surgery room. And I could see this other room with Dr. Lawrence McKinley there, really letting the anesthesiologist have it for not getting him sooner. The anesthesiologist thought it was something with my heart, because I was having cardiac arrest. So he put this tube, he said, "He's going to put it down into my heart and give me 3 fast," he says, "it's going to be fast," because he had to save me, "transfusions," used up all that blood. And he did it so fast, but I didn't feel anything in my chest. I don't even remember. Instead, he got the tube up in my head. That should have killed me too. 3 fast transfusions right up into my head instead of into my heart ventricle. So, Dr. McKinley was letting him have it. And I didn't blame him. The nurse asked, do you remember that? And because he's so worried, the anesthesiologist, he was young, just new doctor. I said, look, he was doing the best he could. He was not thinking clearly, just trying to save me, doing his best. I said, I'm not going to sue him. It was an accident. But later I realized I should have sued like my surgeon or something, or even the young guy, because their insurance would cover it, because I didn't realize how broke I was going to be. My good friend said, oh, you should have sued to get money for your life. I didn't know I wasn't going to get better. And honestly, my surgeon, it was an accident. He's done so many of those surgeries. What were the odds? And God had already told me back in April through a forewarning and different things, but I'd forgotten that forewarning, that I was even going to have surgery. I didn't even know I was going to have it. So it was just in a waking vision that I was in an operating room, and some man's voice with an accent saying, she's here, she's with us, she's going to make it. And I told Dr. H about it, this weird thing, and it smelled like a hospital and cool air and the odor of like an operating room or something. And I said, but I'm not having any surgery. And he said, no, what was that all about? We couldn't figure it out. And I'd even forgotten about it till I asked my mom at home to bring me my journals. And I went back through and saw that in April, early April, that experience. And what he said, and those were the exact words Dr. McKinley said to me after I was out of the second surgery and in the trauma unit. Or I wasn't in the trauma, he just sent me to the trauma unit, but after I was out and I came to, he says, she's here, she's with us, she's going to make it now, in his Irish accent. So, yeah. Isn't it something? God is incredible. God is so real. Just look how he helped me figure out what was going on at this place. And this Brian man's a good guy. And if he ever calls me, and I even asked him, do I have any, they'd ordered vitamins, probably 2 months supply, all this stuff my insurance is paying for, and pills and stuff. I said before I left, I need to know, do I have antibiotics? Because I need to take them with me. They never got back with me. So I have no antibiotics. So I'm going to have to call, I guess, Monday. I can call today, I think, and see if Brian's there. He's the only one I would trust. Otherwise, I'm going to have to, I don't think I can probably call in at night. Maybe I don't know if I can get through to get Jeffrin in 4 nights. He'd know, she'd check, but isn't that awful? Because I said I want to take whatever pills I can take that you've bought. Yeah, I mean, why not? They're mine. But they never got back with me. So, people, they're in trouble, big trouble. Souls in big trouble. You've got to pray for these people because there's consequences. They'll be, if they love God and they have their talk with Jesus after we're dead, they'll have their little talk, their little judgment, and they'll feel bad, and they'll say they're so sorry, and he'll forgive them. But see, they still have consequences. We all will. For anything we've done that's caused harm, even though we're forgiven, we have to make right in different ways. I don't know exactly in what ways on the other side. Probably a lot of growth and work and different things that we'll be doing and making up for, learning, what we did wrong and making amends in other situations of similar things on the other side in the progressive state, because we're not going to be purified until we have paid up our consequences. We do something wrong on earth. You don't pay your taxes. You get caught. You have to do prison time, or if you have a good reason, they'll make you make it up with high interest over years. But you have to pay up. You have to pay the consequences. You hit somebody, even though you didn't mean to, there's consequences. They can sue you. You can bear the guilt and the sorrow that you weren't more careful or whatever happened, or and live with that. So there's always consequences. When we lie, and we're found out, or even if we're not found out, we can just be eaten in. That's a consequence. If we have a good conscience, we will. So, and if not, people find out about us. Sociopaths, psychopaths, my ex-husband. That's why we kept moving. I realized part of it was he wanted to advance his ego. But another part, they'd get on to him. Beverly Hills, they fired him. They got onto him that he was a liar, and they did not like him sleeping around with the teachers. Those parents and that district does not put up with any of that. Other districts, yeah. Not them. They had quality. And those parents weren't going to put up with somebody like that. And not a liar and not an egoist either. He was out. So, and other places, I assume, they got onto his BS. His lies, some innocuous sometimes, but would get him jobs. He would make himself better than he was. But he was a hard worker, and he had talent and high energy, and would get some things done. And he was gifted at teaching, but also was not good with those kids, especially the boys. Liked to exert his control over them. I found out when he was a 4th grade teacher. And intimidated, just ugly. So not a good male role model for boys. And broke up families with the affairs he'd have, and ours included. So, but God needed him out of my life. Anyway, that's my story of the rehab place. We can call it that. The racket place. I suspect many of them are like that, because this one was lovely, 5 stars. But I feel sorry for the people there. Except some of them maybe weren't all that motivated. Maybe they were as content there with their TV and some people eat like that too, eat that kind of stuff. But I can't put just junk in me. So I've got enough problems. I need optimum of everything to keep going, because I don't have the money for a place like that. I think I only had 2 weeks of insurance would have had me there. But they would have worked out something guaranteed to get me convinced, or if I were stupid, they would, and we're on to it, they would convince me that I couldn't, and my back would have been so bad that I wouldn't have been able to go home if I'd another day. I'm just sick now. I'm going on and on and on. I'm a cat on an electric fence today, or worse. So I'm going to do this. This is a perfect one for today from the day by Day with Mary. I'll just hope that this even loads. We'll see. God bless you all. Thanks for listening. The Great Escape, God's Great Escape. And it all just went very well then. So just got right out of there. And you've got to do it. You've got to learn to protect yourself. I wrote to my daughter, I am saving myself. And she knew. When she called me, she got it real fast and knew I was of sound mind and capable. So, in fact, you've got to advocate for yourself, and sometimes you've got to be firm. And you have to be willing then to call the police if it gets to that point. Or wait till your ride comes and then you just both walk out. get a big man to come. And that's what I did in one of the hospitals out in California. I told this assistant minister to come. I said, it's probably going to get bad. I said, we'll walk out of there. They'll try to stop us. Don't speak. We just keep walking. Just look straight ahead and keep walking. That's what we did. As they were pawing at me, trying to get, oh, you can't go, blah, blah, blah. I think I said, watch me, is all I said, and that was it. And out we went. They didn't need discharge papers. They didn't need anything. They sent me nothing anyway, so it's a lot of baloney. Protect yourselves. And be alert. Listen to God's cues through other people, observing. And if you're not getting what you need, but just stay sweet and calm. I was very nice to everyone. That took a lot of energy. I was getting frustrated with the lazy CNAs, these kids that I realized were pulling the wool. No one's that busy that they couldn't have walked with me 5 minutes in 2 days' time. So, but I did far more on my own anyway, and it was better for me to see. See, God wanted it that way. I could see, yes, I can do this. And Jeff and the nurse came and he says, you can do this. Don't you know you are strong? Keep that strength today. Do what you have to do, he said, and sort of nodded like, you know. And I said, yes, I do. I'm leaving here. He said, stay strong and good luck to you. He says, I'll pray for you. So he's a good guy. God bless you all. Hang tough in our world today. Keep praying for our world. And a lot of these people maybe don't even realize what's going on, or they're pressured by corporate somehow to keep people there, or I don't know. They justified it or believe it, or don't recognize it. The underlings probably don't, but the whole thing needs major overhaul. I said no one's supervising these kids. You've got 30 patients. You have one very excellent nurse. You had one outstanding girl helping him. And you had 3 kids who were in their early 20s goofing off all the time, not doing their work, and no one making them do their work. And the nurses can't take on that role. He said, you need to get adults in here at night even and be on their case. But I said, you'll have to figure it out. But I said, you've got organizational issues here, big time. But I said, I said, lovely facility, lovely people. I said, you're especially nice, she was, and sharp. But I said, this isn't the way things should be for people. And they pay a lot of insurance going out. So, later, God bless you. Praise God Almighty, I'm free at last.